Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we are here, and it's another episode of the Racing Debrief. And this week we had a lot of racing, but it was all pretty much dominant race weekends. Yeah, I think it's one of those weekends where you just see one person kind of kill it in the races. Um, so let's jump into it. So we got 4 races to go over. Of course, this is the first week for F1. So if you haven't seen the Racing Debrief before, we do talk about both F1 and NASCAR. So let's jump into that. So NASCAR will start with the trucks on Friday. That was pretty much probably the most racing in the series of all the ones to go over. Trucks had a good race for once. They didn't all pile into each other. So that was that was a little different, but yeah, I mean you had Ty Majeski up at the front, Kyle Busch, Rajah Caruth. Those were the main drivers that you really seen towards the front of that race. Um, Kyle Busch had a few issues that set him back a lap. I forgot what it was, to be honest. I should have wrote this stuff down, but I didn't think of it. Yeah, he had an issue. Ty Majeski's car or truck kind of fell off a little bit. Rajah Caruth just pretty much pulled up and led the most laps. He almost led 40, which, truck race is pretty dominant when there's only like 120 laps. So, he started on pole. Good to see him get the first win. I think a lot of people like that. Most people online seem to be pretty positive about that. So it's cool to see a driver like that get a win, and a lot of people to embrace it. And it's just overall cool to see positivity of somebody winning a race. So, yeah, you got the win. That was really cool to see. So that was awesome. That was a highlight for the weekend for sure. So yeah, just good to see him get a win. Of course, he has the Hendrick Cars sponsorship. They announced they're going to be on the truck for the whole year. So cool to see that. Of course, that puts him in the playoffs. So see what he can do. Of course, this weekend for NASCAR was the first week that we got to see what the team's really going to do on tracks that aren't, drafting super speedway style tracks. So that's going to be, a key thing to sort of see throughout this, like who does well. That could kind of, show who's going to do good for the weekend or the season from this weekend. Because again, it's the first time that we're not on a drafting track. Anybody can win style racing. This really comes down to who's got it. So interesting seeing that kind of play out. And that was the results in the truck race. So we're going to go and skip to, we're just going to go, yeah, we'll do Xfinity next. That was absolutely just a dominant race. I mean, you've seen the Joe Gibbs cars dominate the whole thing. John Hunter Nemechek and Chandler Smith. They led all but like 6 laps, 8 laps, whatever it was. John Hunter Nemechek getting the win in the end. I mean, there wasn't really much throughout the race. It was just those guys leading. So that's really the takeaway from that is dominance on that track. So, I mean, they killed it. Chandler Smith came out short, just like he did last year. I know last year he led like most of the race and lost it. This year wasn't as much of that, but he was still very dominant in it. Losing to Jonathan Nemechek in the end, though. Yeah, I mean, those two absolutely killed it that race. So that's that. I mean, whatever. Move on to. We'll do F1 because that was actually Saturday morning. So, yeah, F1. What is there to say about F1? Of course, it's always interesting going to the track to do testing at, whether it was Barcelona before or Bahrain now. I think that does play into the race as being a little less exciting just throughout the whole field. I think that you look at it and the teams have so much data, right? so much testing, because obviously they did testing for 3 days. Then you have your 3 days of practice, so they can really get the car set, right? So I think that when you look at that, that does play into, okay, why was there no DNFs? Why was there this or that? And I really think that having days of testing and data there does play into that. So I'd like to see them do, preseason testing to try to don't race that. I think that would be a better move. So maybe we'll see that with, when they move the Spanish Grand Prix to Madrid, maybe we can get testing back to Barcelona. But, yeah. So the actual race weekend, a lot of people got hyped up throughout practice, seeing Red Bull not necessarily dominate. But when it came to the race, came to qualifying, Max was in a league of his own, out front, back on course where he left off last season. And yeah, I mean, he dominated, won the race by over 20 seconds, grand slam in that race, led every lap, pole, fastest lap, everything you need for a grand slam. His 5th career grand slam. So that puts him equal with Michael Schumacher and Alberto Ascari. So that's pretty impressive there. And just again, way ahead by such a margin. That gives him 8 wins in a row, coming off of his 7 in a row to finish last year after losing Singapore. So, I mean, that's 3rd all time for consecutive wins after setting it last year, where he had 10 in a row. So, I mean, you think if he doesn't win Singapore, he's on 19 in a row. So he's won 18 of the last 19 races. That's just an insane level. And, yeah, I mean, it's cool to witness for sure. As a fan, I think that if you're not a Max fan, it's definitely a bit annoying, probably. But yeah, as a Max fan, I mean, I think that it's cool to see. So there's that. Throughout the rest of the field, Ferrari clearly the second best team. Mercedes looking like they're the 3rd best, followed by McLaren in 4th. Alpine is clearly the worst team. Their qualifying performance showed it. And if they didn't have some help from Bottas having an issue with his pit stop and Logan Sargent's steering or braking or whatever issue he had messed up on his car, Alpine's would have been the last 2. They've already got people resigning from the team after one race. It's not looking good for Alpine. So, there's that. F1's off to an interesting start this year. A lot of people are saying, oh, I'm bored, whatever. I feel like this is how F1 goes. I mean, I've been watching F1 since 2019 and watched a good amount of 2 years of Mercedes dominating, 1 year that was close, Red Bull dominating for 2 years. And obviously, learning the history of the sport is just a thing that happens. It's just a thing. So, I just think you get a you get new people into watching a sport that are going to be vocal about it and are going to say this is boring, whatever, and those are the fans you're trying to catch. You're trying to catch the casual fans, which I think that casual fans aren't going to be the ones that have that passion and that understanding and aren't going to do that research, right? They're not going to look back and go over records and go over the data of it and try to really understand the sport. And I think that's where a lot of that criticism comes in. And online, there's a good majority of them that happen to be Lewis Hamilton fans. So I think that there's a little bit of trying to defend the difference in his domination compared to Max when they're relatively equal percentage-wise. I think that Max is on a little bit more overall dominant level, but I think the competition isn't maybe as close. But again, Lewis Hamilton's got 100 wins, all the polls. Like, I think that they're pretty equal. So it's hard to say the domination's not on the same level when Lewis has won 6 championships in 7 years. I think that's hard to make a judgment that is different. So that's my take on it. Again, I don't want to, get involved in any other disputes or arguments about that, but that's just my take on it. I think they're both similar dominance. So there's that. So we'll see what happens next week in Saudi Arabia. Max can go for 9 in a row. I'm here for it. But yeah, I guess my thing is I'm just gonna enjoy the moment because again, at some point somebody else is gonna come in and be that dominant, right? Somebody else is gonna be in that level. So it's just how F1 works. So I want to embrace it and celebrate it in that time. That's what I'm gonna do when I watch the races. So that's that. Moving on now to the NASCAR race, where we continue with some domination from one driver. Of course, the 2021 champion, Kyle Larson, pulled up and dominated in Las Vegas. Kind of a track he's had a lot of success at, especially going to Hendrick since 2021. This is his 3rd win there. That was his 1st win with Hendrick. He also won last year in the fall race. So he's had some success there. He's been towards the front in some of the other ones there. So Las Vegas is a track he's definitely ran well at, especially joining Hendrick. Yeah, he absolutely dominated that pretty much from the beginning. He took the lead and won both stages and won the race. 5th time or 5th time in a row he's done that. When he's led both stages, he's won the race. So, dominant from him. Of course, that puts him in the playoffs along with Daniel Suarez and William Byron. Throughout the field, we had some tire issues, getting them off of the car that hurt Bubba Wallace. Getting it secured hurt Chris Buescher or whatever. It kind of like broke. Or didn't break, but the nut kind of came off, and then the wheel itself just fell off. He hit the wall. There was a red flag for a little bit. So you had that. Toyota's definitely looked good on the mile and a half. So you had Tyler Reddick at the front. He was very close in the end. He was definitely making moves, trying to catch Kyle Larson. He didn't pass him at the end, obviously, because Kyle Larson won. But definitely made some moves during that race to get close at the end of both stages and the end of the race. So Tyler Reddick had himself in a good spot. Martin Truex was towards the front, as was Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs. So a lot of the Toyotas were towards the front. Ty Gibbs had a real good run going. He ended up losing first gear, so that definitely hurt him on the restarts, but he was able to drive back up and get, I believe, 5th. So, yeah, just a good day for Toyotas. I think that they're going to be a threat on some of those tracks. Of course, we didn't really get to see how they do, but I think that when it comes to the overall just speed in the runs of the race, I think they'll be in a good spot. So the new Toyota, I think, will definitely be a threat there. But overall dominance from Kyle Larson, winning the whole thing, just leading most of that race. I think he led close to 200 of the 280 laps, or 260 laps. So yeah, just overall dominance in the whole weekend. Truck race, Rajah Caruth led the most laps, won the race. Xfinity race, John Hunter Nemechek, I don't know if he led the most, but between him and his teammate, Joe Gibbs Racing specifically dominated that. Kyle Larson dominated the Cup race. Max Verstappen dominated F1. Very dominant weekend overall for all the racing series that we cover here on the Racing Debrief. So with that, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Next week, we have Phoenix for NASCAR and Saudi Arabia for Formula One.